In this week's Technique Tuesday video, I'll demonstrate two approaches for working increases invisibly in cabled patterns. As always, if you'd like to jump right to a specific point in the video, there are direct links down in the description. Here I've got a situation where I had 2x2 ribbing, and then I wanted to transition into some cables where I had 4 stitches in the cables, but I also wanted to maintain those columns of purls on either side of the cable to have them run right from the ribbing up into the main fabric. So I didn't want to disturb any of the surrounding stitches. I just wanted to add the stitches I needed for these cables. This is a situation where, again, I wanted to keep the background fabric maintained. This background fabric could be anything. It could be moss stitch or seed stitch or ribbing or some other kind of fabric. It could even be stockinette fabric. And I want to maintain those columns of stitches exactly as they are and not have increases occur in those particular places. So what I've done here is I've increased the cables themselves. As I've gone up the column, I've added extra stitches. So I started with 5 stitches here, and then I went to 6 and 7, and finally I have 8. So that was done gradually, and that allows the fabric to get wider without doing anything to disrupt the fabric in the surrounding stitch patterns. So here I have my knit 2 purl 2 ribbing, and I want to change this column of 2 knits into a left crossing cable, and I want to turn this column of 2 knits to a right crossing cable. So for a left crossing cable means that when you have 2 sets of stitches, the stitches on the right are going to cross in front over the stitches on the left. And so we want these 2 stitches to be those stitches that cross over the top. So what we need to do is add 2 stitches right after these 2. So we're going to knit all of the knit stitches and up to the last one. So however many stitches we're working in this column of knit stitches, we work up to the last one, and we work knit into the front and then into the back. Back adds 1, and then we're going to go into the front again, and so that adds our second one. So we've changed 1 stitch into 3 stitches right here. We have our first knit stitch here, and then the second knit stitch has now turned into 3 stitches. And then we just continue on. Now for this one, we want this one to cross to the right, and so that means these 2 stitches, when we have our 2 sets of stitches, the stitches on the left are going to cross over the stitches on the right. So we need to create the stitches that are going to be crossing behind, the ones that are on the right hand side. And so we do that this time by doing the knit front back front trick into this first column of knit stitches here. Knit to the front, then into the back, and then swing around again to the front. Now we've turned that 1 stitch into 3 stitches, and now we can knit the second knit stitch and then finish the row. So now we're going to work across the wrong side row. Now we're back to a right side row, and now we have our 4 stitches that we want to use as the cable, and this is a left crossing cable, so we can put the first 2 stitches on the cable needle, and it's crossing to the left, so these stitches come in front. And now we've worked that first crossing. And now we come to the 4 stitches where we're going to be doing a cable that crosses to the right. So we put these on the cable needle, and this time they come to the back because these stitches are going to cross to the right. Then we continue crossing every 4 rows or whatever our crossing frequency is. And then our ribbing will have transitioned into our cable crossings just like this example here. So we have 5 stitches here that we're going to increase to 6 stitches. So we're going to treat this like a 3x3 cable, and this one is going to cross to the left. So we're going to put the first 3 stitches on a cable needle, and we're putting 3 stitches on because these are the ones that are going to cross in the front, and it's going to be a 3x3 cable. Now we're going to change these 2 stitches into 3 by knitting the first one and then working a knit front back, front and then the back. So now we've increased these 2 stitches into 3. And notice that the increase is now in the center of the cable, very close to the center of the cable. And now we can knit the 3 stitches off the cable needle. Now this time we want to change these 5 stitches into 6 stitches that are going to be crossing to the right. So it's the last 3 stitches that will be crossing in the front. So this time we only take 2 stitches and put them on the cable needle, and we let them go to the back. Now we knit 3 stitches off the front needle. And now we're going to knit 3 stitches off the cable needle. And again, we want to increase in the stitch that's closest to the center of the cable. So this time we're going to knit front back into the first stitch and then do the knit into the second stitch. So now we've got our left and right crossing cables. So when you have an even number of stitches and you're going up to an odd number of stitches, you want the larger number to be crossing in front. So we currently have 6 stitches, but what we're going to want to have is 4 stitches crossing 3 stitches. So I'm going to move the first 4 stitches to my cable needle. Another way to think of this is half of the stitches plus 1. So I had 6 stitches, so I put 3 plus 1 onto the cable needle and held it to the front. Now I'm going to knit to the first stitch, and then I'm going to work a knit front back in this last stitch. This last stitch is the one that's going to be closest to the center once the cable crossing is complete. See the increase is right here, and now I'm going to work the 4 stitches. This time we want a right crossing cable. That means the stitches on the left are going to be the ones crossing in front. That means the stitches that go on the cable needle are going to be held in the back. So we want 4 stitches crossing in front. So we're going to put the first 2 stitches on the cable needle and let them go to the back of the work. So now we work these 4 stitches off the left needle. And now we're ready to work the cable needle, and the first stitch is the one that's going to be closest to the center. So that first stitch is the one where I knit into the front and then the back, and then I knit the last stitch. So now I have 7 stitches on each of these. To explore the possibilities of these techniques, try them out on a swatch and see for yourself how you might find them useful, particularly in patterns where the cabled fabric transitions abruptly. You may find that you can rearrange some of the increases your pattern calls for so that the transition from ribbing to cables is much smoother. If you find my videos helpful, you can buy me a coffee on Ko-fi.com. If you have any comments or questions about today's video or suggestions for videos you'd like to see in the future, you can leave those down in the comments below or join the discussion in my Ravelry group, Rocks. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.